morning, gentlemen, and what a morning it is. Oh my goodness, so much is happening right now. We are living in an absolutely crazy time during a crazy day, and we have a lot to talk about. And folks, when I say a lot, I mean a lot. There has been a lot of things happening that have sort of inspired me to do the monologue that I'm doing today. For those of you that are wondering where Pastor Dale is, just pray for him because he is in trouble. No, I'm joking. That's not the case. No. We should pray for him because he is with his beautiful wife celebrating their anniversary. It is an absolute blessing that he gets to do that, and we're excited for him. Much deserved time for him and Lonnie. Total blessing that they get to do that, and so pray that they just have a wonderful time. They are out and about and will be away for the next couple of days, so we are looking forward to hearing a good report from Dale and Lonnie. We know that God is with them. They are very hardworking people. And it's much deserved time away. I'm a little jealous of him because he is probably at one of the best pancake houses in the world. I'm not telling you where it is because then you know where he is and then that won't be good. But I can tell you, I'm jealous of the man right now. I'm very jealous of the man. I thought I would just say that. But my time will come and I will take my wife to that same pancake house. Anyway, we got some stuff to talk about. First of all, I want to thank very much the folks at Rumble. I want to thank them for their support and the love that they continue to show us as they bring people into the fold. It is an absolute blessing, and we are thankful to have them by our side, supporting us and helping us. And folks, I want to say this. I want to say that I never minimize the value in what you guys bring to the table with your encouragement and your support. It was actually some of the comments that you made in yesterday's live show that got me to have my people act before we let some time go by without correcting a major issue. So thank you for that. We appreciate it. I think, I'm saying this, I believe this, I think we've got the best chat community out there, and it's awesome. You guys are very, very loved. You guys are cared for, and we are just so grateful for your support. Speaking of which, I do want to thank you in advance, Rumble people, for your Rumble rants, and of course, for all of you guys with super chats. Since I am doing this alone today, I will acknowledge you guys as we go, and I want to thank you for that. By the way, I also want to thank you, kind of interesting, for the support that you guys have been showing in some of the videos that have been getting pushed out. We just did a video called "This Story Is Not a Joke, It's Real" regarding Saudi Arabia and the support you guys have shown. I think in less than 10 hours, we are about to hit the 70K mark on that video alone. And man, I got to tell you, you guys are awesome. You're an inspiration to me. You always you inspire me to work harder than I've ever worked before, and it makes it all worth it. So I think that is really, really important. Also, Panther Gal 73, I want to thank you. You are the very first super chat. And you ask, do you think the horses in armies in last days is because no energy grid, earthquakes and stuff? You know, that's a great question, actually. And it's something that I've never really thought about. I'm not sure. But the one thing I can tell you is that when you see horses in the military, it's still very common today, believe it or not. There is a lot of that happening. For lots of different reasons, but that may be a variable undoubtedly involved in that. So that's a great question. Thank you for that. And guys, thank you so much for your support. It is something that undoubtedly does not go unnoticed. You guys are tremendously wonderful. You're a blessing. And thank you guys for all of the input that you continue to give. It's absolutely awesome. You guys really, truly are a blessing to me. You continue to bless my heart, and all the things that you guys do for us really, really does mean a lot to us and undoubtedly goes a very, very long way. So With that in mind, I do want to thank you guys for it. I'm about to do something very dangerous. I'm drinking coffee without a lid because my lid is broken in the studio. And that's probably not a good thing. But, hey, why not? Anyway, a couple of things I want to talk about that have sort of taken immediate precedent in the circumstance of the day that we are in. One of them, to me, is absolutely absurd. Now, we are going to get into the subject of ChatGPT in a second because I think it is absolutely worthwhile. It's what I promised we would develop a monologue concerning in just a minute. But before we do, I want to talk about something very important. 1 second. I would like to talk about this balloon that is in the air. They are saying currently it is over Montana. Now, this is egregious, in my opinion. For those of you that don't know, there is a weather balloon that is, let me back up. They're calling it a weather balloon. It's not. It's a full-blown spy balloon. It belongs to China. And I want people to understand what is actually happening. This was discovered over Montana airspace. The Defense Department says that it is monitoring this. It is flying at an extremely low altitude. Many of these balloons, oftentimes you'll find at an altitude of 50 to 60 to 70,000 square feet. Most of you guys who spend time with Monkey know that. This one is flying extremely low. This balloon is the size of 3 Greyhound buses parked back to back. And it is flying over sensitive nuclear sites in Montana. The Defense Secretary, Austin, has advised President Biden against shooting down the balloon because of the risk of falling debris to civilians. I thought the balloon was flying over a nuclear facility. It's in Montana. Forgive me for saying this, but Montana is God's country. Montana does not have the insane density that you find in neighborhoods here in Southern California. It is a place where, quite frankly, the United States can very quickly tell its residents over that area to go inside their house, and forgive me for saying this, shoot that thing the heck down. If it was me, but it's not, that thing would have been shot down before it ever entered into United States airspace. Don't tell me that this thing appears at 4,000, an altitude of 4,000 feet above a sensitive nuclear facility, and all of a sudden just gets discovered. Don't tell me for a second that this thing is floating over the Pacific on its way over and not being seen. Quite frankly, it was a series of military assets, probably transported via boat or something like that, then launched from a not-so-secret site somewhere near our area. I don't know. But what I do know is if Trump was president while this was going on, first of all, let me just simply say this, there would be nothing floating over our country because it would have been blown up long before it would have entered anywhere near U.S. airspace or what is referred to as the demilitarized, let's just say the DMZ. It would have been exploded. It would have been done. If Trump was in office, let me just simply say this, and it somehow made it over the skies of Montana, that thing would have not only been shot down, but what they would have done, what Trump would have done, was he would have shot that balloon down, seized his assets, handed those assets over to the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, and then sent Mike Pompeo over to China, into the heart of Beijing, and throw it right back at him. And to say, what the heck were you thinking? Instead, China is basically saying, we're putting you on notice. We want to not only show you that we are better than you, but we want to show you that you're cowards. We own you by the debt that you have. We own you by your dependence upon us. By the way, we own you by the dependence that you have upon us for the medical supplies that we use to treat the sickness that we gave you. How are people in the United States of America not losing their minds? How are our military, how is it that our military is sitting on their duffs over this? And let me just say this, not our military. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the Sec of Defense, why are they sitting on their rears not doing anything about this, saying, oh, don't shoot it down, you might hurt somebody down below? I'll tell you why. They're saying what they're saying and doing what they're doing because they're too busy educating people during Black History Month on sensitivity to trans. I'm going to lose my mind. I better slow it down a bit. No, I'm going to say it. They're too busy during Black History Month educating the military on how to accept the trans community into their military force and to be sensitive in the name of diversity, which in essence is a mechanism of indoctrination given by the gift of Marxists, only to bring themselves to a place where we have a weakened military that refuses to get involved in anything unless, of course, we're talking about Russia in Ukraine. God help us if this was a Russian balloon that was flying over the United States of America. If it was a Russian balloon flying over the United States of America, they would light that thing on fire. On camera, they would do it. Think about that for a second. We're too busy starting World War III. We're too busy taking our assets that we are losing by the minute, that is on a 13-year backlog, and giving them to Ukrainian fighters who don't even know how to use them, which is why we're planting our own assets in there to do the training, only to find ourselves in a place of a declaration of war. Do we understand, folks, that the Kremlin has already said that we are at war with them? Vindog, by the way, thank you for your super sticker. You're the first one. Do you understand the mindset behind these people? Do you understand where things are going? I don't think people realize how crazy things are getting. I don't think people understand how dark of a place we are moving into. Vinny, by the way, if you're watching me online, I know it's kind of last minute, but if you want, I'm going to have you jump in with me on Locals if you want to do that today. If you can hear me, bro, let me know. Just let me know in the chat or text me, and I'll bring you right in, bro. It'll be a lot of fun. You inspired me, bro. Anyway, think about this for a second. Why is this happening? Why in the world are they allowing this to take place? I'll tell you why. Because they want nothing more than the destruction of the country that they claim to represent, that they have sworn an oath to protect. Listen to this. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Mao Ning said China is looking into the incident and that they had no intention of violating other countries' sovereignty of airspace. No intention? Wait. You are putting a balloon that is carrying military assets the size of 3 Greyhound buses. Cameras that can take photos through fog. Thermal sensors. Dirty boxes. You mean to tell me that this was just some innocent thing that you're looking into as the foreign ministry? What a joke. Why in the world are we even allowing the Chinese to get away with making statements like this? Why is that even happening? Why in the world, why on God's green earth would they allow something so egregious to take place? Oh, we're looking into this. What a joke. What in the world are they thinking? Folks, I don't know how much more ridiculous this can get. Right? The Defense Department has issued an official statement on the matter. And the statement makes it very clear. We know that what we're dealing with is Chinese. We know how dark this thing actually is. But they don't seem to care. You know what's really funny? They're talking about the fact that they, have all kinds of knowledge of the fact that this thing is what it is. But they've had knowledge of it for quite some time, folks. They've been aware of what they've been looking at for a while, and they still have not acted on it. That, to me, is particularly egregious. I don't know what else to say about how ugly that is, other than shame on the United States military under the leader of the biggest clown ever to enter into office. It's absolutely ridiculous. That's not even the beginning of the type of things that we're actually talking about. There is so many other things that are going on right now that I have had a sort of I don't know what you want to call it, sort of a hankering to talk about. Before we get into the ChatGPT subject, how about the fact, I'll read this to you just so that you know, this is not fake information. This is crazy. Legal counsel for Hunter Biden requested federal probes into Trump allies who accessed and shared the contents of Biden's laptop. In letters to the Department of Justice, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Delaware State Attorney's Office, the Hunter Biden legal team said the access and dissemination of Biden's private data were done without consent, and they allege these actions may have violated federal law. Bull! Sorry. He goes over to a computer repair guy while he's higher than a kite. He has a certain amount of time before he can claim it back, and if he doesn't claim it back, then the computer repair guy has the right to now sell that item to recover the cost of the labor that he put into repairing it. It in effect becomes his property. By the way, according to some case law, including the intellectual property found therein, which the items that were found in that laptop were not intellectual property. They were evidence of the commission of crimes. I absolutely cannot believe that they are allowed to get away with this kind of nonsense. The strategy, the legal strategy, which is not a legal strategy at all, But the strategy that they are taking is interference. Think about this, folks. Understand that even these DOJ requests, they have little effect on actual probes. Counter accusations that are being made are literally, understand this, they're literally intended to muddy the waters surrounding the investigation so that the foreign dealings of this man will not be looked at the way they ought to be looked at. I'm saying this to people investigating this. Don't lose sight of the wickedness that is going on right now, because the days are getting darker. By the way, I just want to simply say this. There are people that might be listening to me. There's nobody in the chat doing this right now, but there are people that might be listening to me saying, James, you're a pastor. How in the world is it that you feel the need to get involved in so much of this detail? There's a couple of reasons. Number one, if no one's going to stand up for righteousness, if pastors won't stand up for righteousness, then who will? Number one. Number two, if we're not exposing the darkness, then how in the world can we expect to be the light? Number three, I'm no good to you as a pastor teaching you the best Bible studies in the world if I do not show you how to practically apply what you know in the scriptures in your everyday life. All of these things are very important, and this is why we go over the things that we go over. I think they're really, really important. Now, there is a direction that I'm going with all of this, and it's to demonstrate a principle that we understand to be true based on what the Bible tells us will happen in the last days, and that's why this stuff is really, really important. And I am going there, and we will talk about it. We cannot ignore it. It absolutely cannot be ignored. Understand, if we choose to ignore it, we create consequences for ourselves that are far greater than anything anybody can ever imagine under any circumstance for any reason. By the way, I'll insert a little bit of good news into the picture, and that is I have, as many of you know, signed a lot of religious exemption letters. I have written those letters and worked very hard to defend the lives and the livelihoods of so many people. I am very blessed to be able to report that tons of our friends from multiple police agencies over the last few days have come back to me and said that the requirements for testing and the shot have actually been dropped. That's what happens when people stand up for righteousness. It's a good little piece of news inserting into it, and it seems like I'm all over the place, but that's because there's so much news here. I don't know where to start and where to end. By the way, Denise, thank you. You say, blessings, Pastor James, and the whole chat. Love you guys from Ventura, California. Denise, thank you so much. You're not too far from us. God bless you. Busted Beak, great to hear from you. You say, Pastor James, please pray for my pastor, Greg Blanc, since he is on sabbatical and having some surgeries done. You two gentlemen are like peas in a pod, and I love it. Thank you, Pastor James. Lord, please touch Pastor Greg. Watch over him, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. This is all very important stuff, folks. How about this? This is interesting. This is something you're not going to hear in the news. I love the folks, by the way, at Forward Observer. I think they're doing a very, very good job at keeping us briefed. So much of what I do comes from information that comes from them. Thunderfish, thank you so much. You say, Pastor James, continue doing exactly what you are doing. We all appreciate you more than you know. It means a lot to me. You guys are amazing. Your encouragement is amazing. It's wonderful. Let me read this. This is interesting. You guys should take a listen to this one. This one's kind of crazy. House launches probe into indicted FBI official. By the way, I want to applaud the House of Representatives. I think the House of Representatives have done some pretty remarkable things over the last few days. Perhaps one of the things that I'm impressed with in the current moment is their removal of Ilhan Omar from the Foreign Affairs Committee. That was a smart move, probably one of the best things they've done in a very, very long time. She is undoubtedly an evil woman, And she has been a major, major, major impediment to our national security. Did I say impediment? Impediment. It's been funny watching AOC and other members of the squad lose their minds, calling it a racist action, removing her because she's Somalian. No, she was removed because she hates the United States of America, and she's a direct danger to the interests of the United States of America because of her hatred for the country and her desire to promote anything that is damaging. Good for them. So the House launches a probe into indicted FBI official. Let me read this to you. It says, in a letter to FBI Director Christopher Wray, the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, I love Jim, by the way, thank you for his boldness, requested documents related to the alleged misconduct of former senior FBI official Charles McGonigal. By the way, if you don't know who McGonigal was, take a listen to this because this is interesting. I'm being very sarcastic, by the way, when I say that. McGonigal was indicted in January for allegedly working as an unregistered foreign agent for Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska and taking $225,000 in payments from an individual who worked for Albania's Foreign Intelligence Service. Jordan said McGonigal's indictment raised new questions about FBI counterintelligence activities during his tenure, including the Crossfire Hurricane investigation into then-candidate Donald Trump and campaign advisor Carter Page. Very interesting, by the way. You think about some of the facts related to this, it's just completely nuts. When you start digging into the manure of some of these names, Christopher Steele, Paul Manafort, all of the manure that related to all of that nonsense. Fusion GPS, these are the types of things that'll get you kicked off of social media. But it's amazing to me to see how so much misconduct has been allowed to kind of just go by the wayside. Yet we've got people in the House that are actually proposing to make laws that make it illegal to speak against anybody for any reason at all if you're white and they're black. You know that's a problem, right? You know that there's a problem there when that kind of nonsense is happening. And by the way, that is true. I don't know who said that. I saw someone make a note in the chat that says AOC's tantrum was completely like fake. It's true. Absolutely true. How about this? Many of you guys have been complaining with me, by the way. I'm not the only one. But many of you have been complaining about the gas problem. I'm not talking about the kind of gas that you put in your automobile. I'm talking about natural gas. And we continue to read about terrible decisions being made by federal and state officials regarding the, ready for this, folks, importing of natural gas, which are things that drive the cost of gas up. By the way, I will tell you this right now. This is kind of an interesting thought process. Gas for us in the Kaddis household has typically been anywhere from, $19 to maybe $40 in the warmer months per month. When it becomes wintertime and we keep the heater on, well, Nicole wants the heater on. I'm not a big fan of the heater because I'm a big fat guy and I got all kinds of warmth sort of built into me. But when we keep the heater on, you might have a $120 month if we have kept the heater on like 24/7. But most of the time, the price will double, if not maybe triple, which will bring us to the $80 to $120 range. Yesterday, folks, or last week, we got a $500 gas bill. If you don't think the destructive and insane policies of the hard left regime in this country has anything to do with what we're seeing right now, you've got something else coming. Because the reality of it has everything to do with the nonsense that we are witnessing going on moment by moment, day by day. And people are suffering directly as a result of it. How about the fact that manufacturing in our country is down again for the third straight month after taking a one-break lull where it stayed the same, and prior to that went down another 8 months? How about this? Let me read this to you. I'm not even going to read the title. I'm going to read the paragraph. Russian company Fors announced this week that Russian soldiers serving in Ukraine could earn over $70,000 if they are the first to destroy or capture an Abrams or Leopard 2 tank. The company said it would pay a $7,000 bounty for all subsequent destroyed or captured Abrams or Leopard 2 tanks. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Russian troops would burn any Western tanks delivered to Ukraine, and the boundaries were a testament to Russian unity. You think for a second we're not going to lose all those tanks? We're definitely going to lose those tanks. Those tanks are definitely going to get destroyed by the Russians, and they're not going to blink doing it because truth is truth. How about this for really interesting? You want to talk about the end of NATO. NATO is well on their way to dying a terrible death. Why? Let me read this to you. A delegation of Eastern European officials called on the U.S. to support NATO membership for Ukraine. In July, the delegation is campaigning for the NATO summit in Vilnius, Lithuania, to begin the formal process of admitting Ukraine into the alliance. Ukrainian, Polish, and Lithuanian members of the delegation said NATO membership for Ukraine is inevitable and pressed Washington to discount the American public's fear of direct military conflict of Russia. Bull! It's the second time I've said that word, by the way, in this broadcast. Short for baloney, of course. You understand, please understand this, folks. Ukraine is amongst one of the most corrupt nations in existence right now, being led by one of the most corrupt men. You realize that if Ukraine becomes a member of NATO, we are literally saying we want World War III. The NATO alliance has an established agreement that says when one person is in war, then we all are. Anybody who wants their children to be safe, anybody who wants their nation to be safe, will not willfully and knowingly engage in World War III superfluously. But let's bring the Bible into this, because we should bring the Bible into everything. Russia's not going to lose, folks. Okay? I'm telling you that right now. Russia's not going to lose. When you look at Ezekiel chapter 38, I'm telling you right now, no way on God's green earth Russia loses. As a matter of fact, what Russia will do is continue south. I don't know the speed by which Russia is going to do what it's going to do as laid out by Ezekiel 38, but I do know this. There is no way that they can suffer the kind of loss that puts them at the disadvantage that would keep them from being able to do the aggressive action that the Bible says they're going to do. It's that simple. It's plain and simple. And we got to think through that, folks, because things are changing. And they're going in a very, very dark direction. I wonder what this is going to look like when Blinken says he's going to go meet with President Xi Jinping. How's that going to work? Hey, Mr. President, good to see you. Let's forget about the balloon that's in the sky. Folks, understand that the amount of time that I have just spent drawing out for you the condition of our world that has resulted from a place of depravity is beyond our ability to be able to comprehend, but it is spiritual, folks. Understand this. It is very spiritual. Speaking of things being spiritual, maybe we have a little bit of a conversation concerning what we know to be the case. This is very important, right? What we know to be the case regarding OpenAI and what is happening with ChatGPT. Folks, do you understand the implications of what this is all about? First of all, let me just simply tell you this. The Bible makes a lot of things clear about what we're going to find in the last days. It should not be a surprise to anybody what we're about to see and what's actually going to happen. No one should be shocked. No one should be taken by surprise when we begin to see things happening like the church raptured, the final Antichrist being introduced to the world. Revelation 13 talks about the mark of the beast being taken, the image of the beast being forced to be worshiped. And the question that many of us have always been asking is, how in the world are people going to be so ready? I mean, folks, think about this for a second. The Bible tells us in Revelation 14 that there will be an angel that will go to people and say, don't take the mark. If you take the mark, you're going to die. Spiritually, you're done. Like it's irredeemable. You're finished. There's no hope for you. How in the world, this is my question, how in the world are people going to still be ready to do this? The Bible tells us that there will be bold judgments that will be poured out, and people will be waving their fists, despising God when that time comes into fruition. The question that I have always been asking is, how in the world are people going to be so quick? Folks, do you know that we have laws, federal laws, believe it or not, put into place that allow people to change certain ID numbers if those numbers fall upon a condition where you have 666 in them? So if you, for example, got a driver's license, and in that driver license was the number 666, you would actually be allowed to change your driver's license number. Or how about this? Let's talk about something even more crazy, more insane, more unreal when you think about it, right? Let's say you have a social security number that actually has the numbers 666 in it. According to the Social Security Administration, you can contact them and you can change that number on the basis that you are not comfortable with the sequence 666. Why do they have actually laws in the book that allow them to do that? Because everybody knows it's taboo to take that mark. So the question that we've always been asking has been, how in the world would anybody get to the point where they would be open to receiving the mark of the beast? Now, some of that was answered for us when we began to see the imposition of certain medical procedures on people and people being very, very quick to want to adhere to that because of the fear of death. But it still presents a bigger problem because the Bible tells us they will do it willfully and they will be happy to do it. So how in the world is that going to take place? How in the world are they going to be, how does that even happen? It's kind of an important question to be asking. How does that even work? What's particularly unique is that we are deploying tools right now that are causing people to get more and more comfortable with convenience and allowing their minds to be completely ripped off. I'll give you an example, and this is kind of the premise behind why I wanted to do the show today. So we'll spend some time actually talking about it, and hopefully we'll build it and develop it for you just a little bit when it comes to the OpenGPT issue. OpenAI is something that is going to change and has already changed the face of how our children interact with reality. Now, I've said this before, I'll say it again. The advent of video games has been a very destructive force for the minds and the hearts of children. I think perhaps one of the more destructive forces for the minds of hearts and children is the participation in social media type tools like TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, so on and so forth. Those things affect the brain substantially. My dear friend Charlie Kirk made a decision for his life that I admire. A couple of years ago, year and a half ago, where he decided that although he's not Jewish, he was going to honor God by taking a real Sabbath. And when I say a real Sabbath, I mean a real Sabbath. Anybody who's friends with Charlie, loves Charlie, is close to Charlie, who communicates with him on a regular basis, which I do. I consider myself to be pretty close to him. I love him a lot. Everybody knows that come Friday evening, if you try to text Charlie, you won't get a response until Sunday. Because he honors the Sabbath. Not because he thinks you have to do it for salvation or anything like that. He's an Orthodox believer. But he turns off his phone and unplugs Friday night and will not turn it back on until Sunday morning. Or actually, I think most of the time it's Sunday morning. Sometimes he'll turn it on an hour after sunset on Saturday night. Now, he does that because he recognizes a couple of things. He recognizes the need for rest, number one, but he also recognizes how damaging it can be to the mind to keep your brain, your mind, your heart, your eyes attached to your phone 24/7. Do you know the CEOs of all of these major companies do not allow their children to participate in their own product because of the damage that it does to the mind? So understand that video games are not just the culprit here. Understand that it's the modern technology that we have around us that can be actually very damaging and devastating to the human mind. We know this. We should expect this to be the case. So let's talk about video games for a second. Now, I remember when I was a kid, that's when Pong came out, or an iteration of it. I remember buying one of those, my dad buying one of those Pong machines. It was an Atari. There were no game cartridges during that time. It was just simply a unit that had Pong permanently programmed into it. You had the little wheel that you spun, that was attached using these big old cables that looked like coax cables, even though they weren't. And you could spend time playing that game. Now, what happened with that game is if you spent enough time with that game, you would beat all the levels, and it just got boring. And so after a period of time playing that game with a concentrated effort, you just moved on. You're like, okay, let's go out and play baseball. Let's go find an ant hole to blow up. Let's go back to doing kid things that we would always do. When I was a kid, you had systems like the Atari 2600. That was always fun. Played little games like Pitfall and some of these other games, and understand Decathlon, one of my favorite ones. My dad didn't like Decathlon because Decathlon forced you to take the joystick and swing it back and forth and just to make the runners go faster, you had to go back and forth, and pretty much doing that destroyed the controller. So after, a concentrated time of playing Decathlon, you'd have to go out and buy more controllers. Atari loved that because it produced more income for them. But you all know what I'm talking about, right? They had little serial connectors. You put them in and you played your game. Pac-Man was the same thing. I hated playing Pac-Man after playing Decathlon because the little joystick became insensitive, and so you had to like literally almost break the joystick moving the Pac-Man guy, you know? We all know what we're talking about, right? If you really think about it, I want you to understand there were certain limits that were put into the kind of video games that got played when I was a child. You would play through the scenario, you'd end the game, and it was over. It was kind of boring. A lot of us liked playing video games, but after a while, we kind of got bored because we were a generation that enjoyed being more outside than in front of a TV screen. When I was a kid, heck, when I was in high school, if you told me that there would be a whole generation of people whose faces were stuck to their cell phones, I would have said, no way. God will rapture us before that happens. Yet we've gone to that place. As a matter of fact, the problem is so dangerous that drivers who put their phones in their faces while driving are as dangerous as drunk drivers. Never thought in a million years we'd get to that point. I used to remember when I was in college, that's when the advent of real PC games started really coming on. And we would have a long day in Bible college. We'd get all of our homework done, and then we'd go and we'd play a game like Command and Conquer. Nothing like the kind of graphics it is today. And we'd always look forward to playing it. And about after a total of 12 to 15 to 20 to 25 hours of playing the game, you beat the game and it was over. It wasn't fun anymore. There was an actual stop. OpenAI is about to change all of that for everybody. The people that are addicted to video games right now don't even understand what the production of dopamine rushes are at the level they're about to come when things like OpenAI technology is applied to them. Let me tell you the implication of how that works, and then I'm going to go somewhere with this. It used to be if you were a video game programmer, you would program a video game, especially if it was a role-playing type of game, meaning you got to sort of choose your fate. Oregon Trail was a game that we loved playing, and we played it a lot when we were kids in elementary school. You remember you put in the big 5.25 floppy disk, and you'd have this little thing that looked like a cow kind of floating across the screen, but it was really more like an X with a 0 above it, and it kind of just floated across the screen, and it was really ahead of its time because on those Apple IIe's, you could actually use your keyboard to point the gun and shoot it at the X with the O above it, and you would watch that thing kind of fall over, and that was you going hunting for food supplies while you were traveling across the country. But anybody who played games like the Oregon Trail recognized that there were only a series of scenarios that were sort of programmed in its totality, and there were only a series of things that you could do at a certain time. When you went beyond a certain point playing that game, it was kind of done. Like there was really nothing that, you could do. You were sort of left to the idea that you've played all the scenarios out, and you could kind of memorize what would happen. It was very random. Even the randomizers that were bought into the picture with the new programs, you could defeat because you kind of knew what was going on. Kind of like playing an online version of chess. You could beat the computer. You figured out how the algorithm worked, and you could beat the algorithm. We did that all the time. That's why that stuff kind of became boring. Let me tell you how GPT works. All those days are gone now. Now is coming the day where you get behind your computer with the most realistic graphics in the world. Matter of fact, the kind of graphics that are implemented in a virtual headset. You put your headset on, and you enter into a world that is literally the Matrix. Everything looks real. It feels real. You can even walk in the room in which you're in, and it will feel like you're walking in a virtual space. You jump, it feels like you're jumping. You sit down, it feels like you're sitting. And if you want to be dormant and continue to move, just grab the joysticks and you can simulate moving through the use of your joysticks. Remotes are what they're calling it now. You don't say joysticks. Either way. With OpenAI and with ChatGPT, there are no more limits to scenarios. You can make a decision in the role-playing game that you are engaged in, and the computer will literally customize a scenario for you that nobody else in the world will see. And the more you begin to make decisions concerning the scenarios that you are in, the more the artificial intelligence learns your patterns, and the more it will seek to challenge you in your way of thinking, to break you into a new pattern. And what will happen is you will be more addicted to that stuff than you will heroin. I never thought I would say something like this, but if you had to pick an addiction, heroin would be an easier one to deal with than something like this. The technology that ChatGPT brings to the table might even be worse than pornographic addictions, because it would take addictions like that to a whole new level. Understand, the reason why pornography is so dangerous is not because it is like every other drug. It's not. Every other drug, you take a drug, the way you get to feel high, the way you did the first time, is you take more of it. When it comes to pornographic material, the only way to get the same kind of feeling of arousal that you got the first time is by engaging in different material. That's why we produce people like Jeffrey Dahmer's, because they're not satisfied with the same thing, and that's when we get into the kind of sexual activity that brings on rape and murder and so on and so forth. Imagine ChatGPT being used in scenarios like that. You know what it will do, folks? I'm telling you, it's already doing it. It is going to suck in human minds. It is going to bring humanity into a hypnotic trance that is completely unbreakable unless the Spirit of God intervenes and breaks man of the bondage that they will allow themselves to be in. And by the way, folks, the technology that I am talking about is not coming. It's already here. And because it's already here, I want you to understand this. This is very important. Because it's already here, we have already set up the ground for what the final Antichrist will do in Revelation 13. The hypnotic trance has already begun, and the world is already moving in that direction. We are already there. Folks, I just want to simply say this. I'm not saying Jesus is coming soon anymore, because I don't think it does it justice. I'm actually saying Jesus can come at any second. Jesus is coming soon kind of gets you in that sort of mindset where you think, oh, well, he might come tomorrow or the next day or the day after. Jesus could come any second means, hey, wake up. He could come before this show actually ends. Boy, would that be cool. And if we know that Christ could come at any second, maybe we ought to change the way we look at things. By the way, I want to bring this up. This is kind of interesting because people are talking about VR headsets. I actually purchased a VR headset a while ago to help in my flight simulation software that I use to practice flying helicopters. Can I let you all in on a little secret? I wasted my money. Honestly, I'm not playing. It gets you in this weird mindset where your sense of reality is just completely gone. It's a waste of money. Now, there are some people who swear by it and say, oh, it makes me a better pilot and so on and so forth. Not me. think I used it 2 times or 3 times since I bought it. And then after that, I went, I don't like what it does to me. I don't like how it's changing me. And when I say changing me, meaning for that moment that I'm in, you put on a virtual reality headset for 30 minutes and then you take that thing off your head. It feels like the real world that you are in when you take the headset off is not real. That's scary, by the way. Now, I'm not going to be one of these guys that says I'm anti-technology. I think God uses technology in many, many different ways. But I am against anything that would rob the minds and the hearts of our children. Think about that for a second. We are going in a very dark direction, folks. And what is perhaps the most incredibly insightful thing to me is recognizing the fact that God said it would happen. Right? It's actually cathartic. There is a literal catharsis in my heart that takes place when I recognize the faithfulness of God in showing up the way that he does. It's pretty amazing. I will tell you something else that changed my mind about a lot of this stuff that kind of caused me to think in this direction. Being the proud father of 3 children. I recognize how easy it is to destroy their precious little minds. And we need to make a concerted effort to make sure they are protected. Folks, we need to be in prayer. I'm telling you right now, Jesus could come at any second, and we need to be ready for it. I think it's very, very important. It's critical. We need to start thinking through these things, folks. We don't have a lot of time left. I'm going to say that right now. We do not have a lot of time left. Let's open up our eyes and let's say, God, how do you want me to live in this moment and in this time? Lord, what is worthy of the precious time that you've given me that I'm running out of? How do you want me to live and what do you want me to do? And it's time to put him first in all that we do, folks, because Jesus could come at any minute. All right, we're going to close in prayer. And as we do, we are headed over to locals. I don't have a link prepared for you guys. Just be on the lookout. We are going to switch over to locals in just a second. I think Vindog's going to join me. I think. I don't know. He didn't confirm it. Well, he may have confirmed it. I just may have not been paying attention. But I think he is going to join me. Let me see here. He's on the road to San Diego, so he won't do it. Okay. Not a big deal. I'm going to be with you guys on locals in a few minutes. And all we are going to do, by the way, for that local session is a Q&A. So get ready. I'll see you guys over there. I love you. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you, Lord, for this time. Go before us in this moment now, Lord. Fill us with your spirit. Keep us looking to you, seeking you, putting you first, desiring you more, Lord. Help us, Lord, for our hearts and our minds to be renewed, Lord, as we look to you for our hope, for our answer, for life, and everything that goes with that. We love you, God. Keep our focus on the fact that you could come at any money, and you are so good to us, Lord. Thank you for your faithfulness and your goodness. Go before us now. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, you guys, we love you. God bless you. Keep fighting the good fight.